what kills me is that I hear more than anything from parents, I just don't know how to love them. And now I can say, you are afraid. You're afraid, but identity is not a death sentence. Identity is their humanity. And to try to strip someone of their identity is inhumane. Yeah. And your love should not be inhumane.
That's But guys, let's give a resounding, warm hello to Gabrielle Union Wade. Sorry. I love you. This is wonderful.
Oh, y'all trying to have me crying today.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I see what you're on.
Now, for those, I'm going to say for the one person in this room, and we do have some audience questions that we're going to pepper into the back. I have y'all right here. We're going to put y'all over there because you don't want to come to these things and not ask questions. You want to know. But for the one person in this room who doesn't know Gabrielle's journey, I mean, she's an award-winning, nominated actress. She's a She's a producer. She's a best-selling author. She's a Time 100 cover honoree. Currently, you are producing, what is it? For The Idea of You. Yes. The Idea of You for Amazon Prime with Anne Hathaway. And recently, of all the many jobs she's finished, she just worked with me on Truth Be Told for Apple. I've loved this woman for years. Thank you. And thank you for being on the front row seat. Before we go to questions, we're going to make sure we get one from you because she said it out loud. That's what we do here. We honor people who say it out loud. But for those people who don't know your journey, Gabrielle, you and I go way back. We met on a show called City of Angels. But the one thing I didn't know was your origin story, how you came to be an actor. And when I was doing my prep for this, I read that you were working at a modeling agency when you decided to act. Tell us about that.
Oh, wow. So I was a senior at UCLA. I was paying for school myself. Bruins. Bruins. We won yesterday. I was paying for school myself, and I was taking 20 units, exactly. That's a lot. But I wanted 4 more so I could have an easy last quarter. So I was like, I need 4 more units. How can I get 4 more units? And so someone said, go to the Expo Center, and they have internships. So I'm going through this massive book of internships, and I'm like, I just need an easy one, like where you barely have to show up. Like, what is that? And I thought, Hollywood. So I got an internship at a modeling agency, but I was working in the children's department, which was a full-service agency. So we did modeling, movies, TV, commercials, the whole gamut. So I was calling in appointments for Jessica Biel, Hayden Panettiere, Shane West, that whole crew. And when my internship ended, they were like, would you ever be open to being one of our models? And with my low self-esteem ass, I was like, someone thinks I'm pretty?
Oh my God.
What? And so they're like, yeah, a couple clients came in, thought you were one of our girls. And this is where the lie happens, guys. Because the adult side was, the bulk of the ladies were more penthouse pets. They had a couple attributes I did not have. I also looked 12, so I was like, I don't know what kind of jobs we're all going to be going on together. But very quickly, I started booking teen, sassy, all about you. And at the time, they would only use one black model every 3 months. And so I was like, you broke up with your boyfriend? And I was like the girl who's like, in the picture. But I made $120 a day
Wow.
Not counting 20% agent's fee, which is aggressive for $120. but I had been also at the same time never quit my good job. I was the book buyback supervisor at UCLA, and I was making $6.16 an hour after 3 raises, child. So I was like, oh, I'm rich. I'm Naomi Campbell. I'm just modeling things gonna take me far. But yeah, and then very quickly I went from being like the little model girl, and they were like, within the same week, they were like, well, she can read, right? So they sent me on an audition for Saved by the Bell, the new class.
Wow.
And I booked it. It was a co-star. It was like 2 lines, I think. I was mistletoe girl number 2. And that's how I started.
But you know what you haven't been? You haven't been mistletoe girl number 3. I've been nurse number 1, nurse number 2, nurse number 3. Baby nurse, name all the nurses. You've only been mistletoe girl.
Number 1, yeah, just once.
So let's talk about, going from co-star to then booking huge guest star turns on Sister, Seventh Heaven, and then you were a series regular where we met on City of Angels.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about that. What was that auditioning process like?
Well, for me, it wasn't scary because I didn't want it. This was just something I was doing that was paying me while I could finish college. And then when I finished college, I was like, adulting looks hard. And I was studying for the LSATs, and I was planning to go to law school and that whole thing.
God.
As one does. I was taking those practice tests and not doing well. Yeah, Kaplan didn't help me. For that first year, just trying, just going out on auditions, and initially they had made up a fake resume, and then with each thing I booked, they would take one thing off.
Yes.
And eventually, very quickly, within, 6 months, I had a real resume. Because turns out no one asks if your resume is actually accurate. So go ahead and put, jujitsu, horseback riding.
Wait, I put horseback riding.
Oh, you have to.
I booked the job, and they said, "Can you ride a horse?" I'm like, "Who said I can ride a horse?"
You're like,
So
your
don't
resume.
put horseback riding on there, guys.
I was like, no, literally, no one ever asked. No one ever asked. And
no.
each job, I would be there watching. On Saved by the Bell, I ended up doing it twice. Mistletoe girl number 2, and then they brought me back as an obsessive coin collector, as most high school students are. Yeah, I would just watch whoever I knew had worked the longest. So I was on those sets watching Mr. Belding and Screech. So I was like, okay, they both survived. Old Saved by the Bell, the new one. So I was just watching how they interacted. I was watching how the crew interacted with them. I was watching where they went. I had no idea what to do. I had been a model for breakup stories. And then they're like, oh, you booked it. I'm like, what does that even mean? So whereas my other co-stars and guest stars would be in their trailers or in their rooms, I would sit in the audience and just watch the other scenes, just to learn, because they'd be like, get on your mark.
Right.
And I'm like, what's a mark? So I'm like, okay, that's where the X is. Okay. And just learning little things. But each step, somebody was committed to my success. And not being interested in me failing. I had done this, I had been up for this job. Bianca Lawson had gotten it. It was called Good Behavior. It was a show on UPN. And it had come down to me and Bianca, right? And she was just booking everything. It was like one of those people that you see walking in the audition and you're like, why did I sit on the 405 for this? She's getting it. But come to find out that the room was split. So some people wanted Bianca, some people wanted me, but they ended up hiring Bianca, and then they brought me back to play her best friend, which happened quite a lot to me, actually, over the years. And Sherman Hemsley was, he was the star of the show, but he would be like, why are you do you see where your light is? And I'm like, I see the big, large light, but I didn't know what my light was versus somebody else's. I didn't know that somebody who's more skilled can actually stand in your light. Like, it's a literal thing. So, when people say, don't let anyone dim your light, well, if you don't know anything, girl, you about to be in darkness. If somebody, you know what I mean? So, like, he would literally, I could see him move people out of his light. Just a little touch, because it's like legend, Sherman Hemsley. And I was like, okay. I tried that. I wouldn't do that again. People don't take well to that. It's up there with a line reading. But just watching how people interacted. And I don't know if you guys remember a show called Welcome Back, Kotter.
Yes.
Well, the guy that played Epstein, he still looked like Epstein, but he was a second AD. And he would just come up throughout my whole, I think it was like we were there for like a week or whatever it was. And he would give me tips on how to not get lost in a scene, you know what I mean? So each job I was picking up little tidbits, but there were people that were committed to my success. Working with Jennifer Lewis early in my career, if you guys are familiar with Jennifer.
Yes.
And she would go, Bobby, bitch. And that was me. She said, if you're gonna be a bitch, be a lovable bitch. Say that line with love. Now do it again. And would she call our own actions and cuts? Yes, she would. Turns out people also not open to that if you're not Jennifer Lewis. But every job, people just kept putting me on. And each job, I just would be quiet and watch. And watch the people who you could tell the crew respected. That becomes pretty obvious quickly. What actors the crew respects versus maybe who the shiniest toy is on the lot. Those are two different things. So I would watch who is respected, who's been around the longest, and most people are open to questions. And I would be like, I don't know what I'm doing. And they're like, girl, me neither. And I'm just winging it, finding my light. And I was like, okay, I'm learning. But each job, it taught me how to be a professional. And it taught me how to appreciate the wins when they're coming kind of few and far between, and you're like, why am I doing this? I should start studying for the LSATs again. But it gives you like the little bit of hope to keep going, and to take all that wisdom and knowledge to the next job. And I never asked the same question twice, but I would have new questions just so I could learn what every job on the set did. Just learning what it is to be a respected member of this community. And that can take you further than anything. If when you walk on set, people are like, oh, yeah. Not because you got the most jokes or the cutest or the whatever, but the person that they know respects their time, respects their jobs, and wants to do the best they can do without, holding you up all day.
Well, I can attest to that. We worked very similarly. It was like, it was so divine because I had a person on set opposite me. We worked the same. It's the brass tacks of the situation, getting to the truth of the scene, but also being so ready to work that the day just, because we don't have any time when you're filming television versus film. There's no time. Apparently I make, apparently I'm shooting sparks from my pocket. But I can attest to your work ethic, Gabrielle. And it's interesting, I love, we have such similar paths. Because the person that I work with, they used to, when you're on a set, the ADs get nervous if they don't know where you are. You're always in your trailer if you're on a set for one day. And so I realized that I was missing a lot of stuff. And when I worked with Will Smith for 3 days on a film, I just kind of snuck out and I watched because I like to watch as well. And he said, oh, you got to get out of that trailer.
I want to ask you, because we've talked about this over the years, especially early, where everything just feels temporary, and your talent feels temporary. Everything feels temporary. Like you're only good as your last gig. Yeah. Taking public L's, right? And if you've been in any kind of audition room, that's public. It doesn't have to be a billion people. It could be 10. But not getting something that you want, and how to move through it, how to mourn it. You know what I mean? Because for every, it used to be, for every, what they say, 50 auditions, you'd get like 3 callbacks or something like that. So that's a lot of rejection. And if you've gone from being, you know, heralded in your hometown, or you're used to getting a certain amount of attention, or you really believe that you have what it takes and you deserve it, it's hard to deal with rejection after rejection after rejection. And sometimes it's hard to not take that, I don't know, that negative thing that you start
And
believing about
internalize
yourself
it.
and internalize it and take it to the next opportunity. Like that was, it's been an ongoing conversation
It's
for
definitely.
20 plus years.
I think part of the thing that helped me get over those rejections, because, you know, I definitely had them, is my tribe of fellow actors, because, you know, thank God my group of friends, we were all so different, and that we were all constantly being rejected, and we could be there for each other, but we weren't up for the same gigs. But I do remember, and I want to ask you this: when you went into audition rooms, were you surrounded by the same, like Bianca Lawson, but were there other people that you would always audition against?
Yeah, it was always, in the very beginning, it was Melinda Williams. Give it up for Melinda. She's like a doll. It was Melinda Williams, Bianca Lawson, Taraji, because remember Taraji came a little later than like some of the teen stuff, but I met Taraji on the set of Sister Sister along with Christina Milian.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
I love them both.
Who else was in there? And then it shifted after a certain point, and then it was Carrie and Zoe, and I'm missing people. Who am I missing? People at that time, like Tamala Jones. Tamala used to walk. Her and Melinda Williams and Bianca. I'm like, there
was Niecy Nash and Sherry Shepherd for me. It's like, okay, well, they're here. I might get this. But what I learned, to go back to your original question, what I learned is what is meant for you will come to you.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's why I love hearing your origin story, because, you know, I used to come to events and listen to other actors, and sometimes you can get despondent, and that rejection, we have to learn to have thick skins. My skin got so thick I felt like a port rind, you know. It's just like, I'm sick of having thick skin. I wanted to be thin and smooth as a baby's bottom, you know. But you transitioned very quickly from guest star. You went on to become the leading lady in, Two Can Play That Game, Deliver Us from Eva, Bad Boys 2, Breaking All the Rules. I mean, that's a section of my life that I remember, because we were always there, like, oh my God, Gab. You made that transition, very, very effortlessly. But I skipped the movie that I wish I could just, squeeze into your outfit. Bring It On. You earned your stripes. You literally earned your stripes. And what you did by laying the foundation, learning, on the job, you earned your stripes and you earned your seat at the table. But we all want to know what it was like stepping out of the guest actor into the lead actress role, and what that felt like, because you were still very young. And the sad thing here, guys, is she still looks exactly the same from when I met her. I hate saying we started out together. I want to say, I'm 10 years older than Gabrielle, but we're not. And the thing is, you still look exactly the same, but it's the maturity and life experience that changed you. But tell us about what it was like then as, an ingenue actress versus the wisdom that you have today sitting in that seat.
Well, I owe a lot to the UPNs of the world and the WBs and early Fox stuff, because it allowed you to play and not be good. You know what I mean? It allowed you to be painfully painfully average, or awful, but still get more opportunities. And you were allowed to learn. You know what I mean? A lot of people have the luxury of being terrible, but we generally don't. You get to be bad once, and then they're like, whatever happened to...
Yeah, that's true.
But at that time, there were so many teen-focused shows, and we had our own shows. We had a lot of Black shows, and I was able to meet people, especially people who are, other writers, producers who weren't the main people, but who are, trying to cut their teeth. And there's a generation of us that we're just sort of coming up and learning together, and we kind of relied on each other. But again, when you leave your trailer, and you start talking to people,
Leave your trailers.
that's where the magic happens. And through that, I paid my dues. But I also started as a college graduate, or very close to being a college graduate, playing 15. So I'm not a 15-year-old trying to navigate Hollywood, certainly in those times. I'm a reasonably grown person-ish at that time. So by the time I got the opportunity in my mid-20s to star in something, well, I thought I was starring something. So 10 Things I Hate About You and She's All That, they both came in the same summer. And I was the Black friend. But I felt like the way, especially on 10 Things I Hate About You, it was favored nations. So me, Heath Ledger, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Larissa Olniak, Julia Stiles, David Krumholtz, Andrew Keegan, all of these guys who've been working forever, we're all treated the same. We're all getting paid the same. We are spending every minute together. And I thought, oh my God, movies are amazing. I absolutely thought that this is how movies were made, and everyone had this sort of experience. But then on She's All That, and they're like, here's your triple banger. Don't mind the ants and the other critters in there. You don't talk to them, they won't talk to you. And you realize, oh, it's a hierarchy. Okay. So by the time Bring It On and Delivers from Eva came around, the Black Hollywood community, who had nurtured me and birthed me, really, and given me all of these amazing opportunities, when they said, you're ready, that's when the they became a we. And I felt like, oh, wait, okay, I can put my own stamp on things. Not just how I'm going to deliver things, but the experience on this set. I have that ability to change everything for everybody.
Yes.
And but there's one day, because you know everything, of course, as a young person who's number one on the call sheet. Oh, hello, LL, otherwise known as number 2. Rock this bell, LL. But I was feeling myself, right? And Gary Hardwick, this was his first feature film. And, we all were kind of testing the waters of our ego and our pride. And this is, LL hadn't done a ton. So, he's still a little, insecure about acting, transitioning from music. And we got into an argument about something, like just a debate, back and forth in the trailer. I wouldn't let it go. Neither would he. And, the ADs, the PAs are popping in. They're like, about how much longer? I'm not even thinking about time. I need to be right in this moment. And we carry on, I don't know, maybe 30, 45 minutes, right? I know. Now, you already know, I don't play about time. But at that moment, I needed him to concede and me to be right and to own my rightful place as number 1 on the call sheet, right about everything. And then the end of the day comes, and I overhear this crew member say, no, I'm not going to make my daughter's game. Oh. And I was like, and it all hit me. The responsibility that comes with being number 1. It's not about just being right. It's not about, you getting the most lines or whatever it is that we think it is at that, when you first get there. We're all connected. Yep. And I never want to be the reason somebody doesn't get home to their family.
That's what I appreciated about you.
Yeah. But it's very much, too much is given. Yeah, exactly. And some people just don't take that responsibility well. And it can manifest in a lot of negative ways. You know, I think when it's been our turn, when it's been so hard fought and so humbling, you want to emulate what you see.
Exactly.
And what you see is rarely the best behavior. The people who get amplified, the behavior that gets amplified are the negative folks. And you think, well, that's what it is to be a diva. To be, see? Even our audio doesn't want us to. But it's a hard, you know, a hard head makes for a soft behind.
Yes.
And I got my tail kicked many a day, you know, to where now, when I am blessed enough to be number one on the call sheet or to play a lead.
You know, Gabrielle, this is something, I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because I think there are misperceptions about, and this is something that clearly we both have in common, being beautiful women. I love y'all so much, and you will always be invited to my living room. The misperception that it's easier for a woman who looks like you to make it in this town, and to hear, you know, your journey, you know, in your own words I guess, you know, I actually, I know that it's not easy because I understand this industry, but hearing your journey and it I don't know, it's illuminating, and it makes me happy, not that you had to suffer, but that you know, that you've earned, you have truly earned your place at the table. And what I love about your career, the choices that you've made, because now you're in the driver's seat. When you're number one on the call sheet, you're in the driver's seat, and you get to make the choices about the characters that you're going to play, which brings me to the inspection. Woo! Let me just tell you, I'm probably going to cry a little bit. There was not a hint of you in that film. It was a transformative role. And what made you decide to play this character? Because I don't want to, I mean, we all know that you're a parent of an LGBTQ plus child. And did that play a role in it? Tell us about, because I love this movie so much, and I love what you did, and my heart broke for you, not for you, for your character, and for your son in the film. Tell us how that part came to you and why you decided to play that role.
Yeah, I had been wanting to work with Effie Brown, and I get this script from Effie, and I was like, that was fast. Put it out there, came right back. And I read the script, and I was like, oh, this is a winner. And initially, they had been asking me to just come on to executive produce with them, and I was like, say less. I believe this is a winner, and I know how I can be additive as a producer. And Elegance was like, great. Would love for you to play my mother. And I was like, is there are there goldenrod pages there where I don't see where I could play your mother. She seemed like such a hateful lady. And he said it can it's the nicest way I could put it. He said, no, it can only be you. And I didn't quite understand that at the time. And, you know, he was very emotional, and he said, it can only be you. There's only so many actresses that my mother respects. And if she hears it's you, she'll show up. And they had been estranged.
Can we get some tissues up here, please?
They had been estranged for 18 years. So we got greenlit February 14th, 2020. And his mom passed February 18th, 2020. And I was like, okay, he's not going to want to do this movie, you know? Has anyone seen the inspection yet? A couple people? Okay. So I won't spoil it.
Don't let us spoil it by crying.
So the movie is ultimately about hope. And I was curious if he would still see it that way. And because, grief is the great trickster. It can soften edges that were sharp as tacks, or it can sharpen things that, perhaps were a little more rounded. And he was like, no, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to be able to direct this, and no, we're going to full steam ahead. And then I had to deal with my reality, which is, as a parent to a trans child, we live this. We live rejection by the people who are supposed to love us the most. And to have a front row seat of that kind of heartbreak, and then to make a commitment to play the kind of person that causes that kind of heartbreak, is dark. Because I'm like, I don't even know how to get into this. I don't know. But Elegance was like, we've known that you could do this, the whole time. And I knew exactly what he meant. He meant Black people have known I've had the range to do this my whole career. And he just had such a confidence in me that I lacked in myself. You stay in this industry long enough, you go from it girl to shit girl real quick, girl. And you start to believe who they think you are. And you start to internalize that. And, so I'm not on every list. I'm not on most lists. If it calls for real actors, they're like, not you, bitch. Back up. They're like, can you call Octavia for us? Like,
No, I promise you, Gabrielle and I would never be considered for the same part. I am dying for the day.
It's happening. We're writing it now. But you can lose sight. And I was lost, and I didn't know how to find my way in. And eventually I realized that before she was a mother, even though she was a teen mom, she was a girl with dreams. And I'm like, what were those? And so the more he was talking about that, about how his mom was, a top student, like #1 student in the school, and a top athlete. I was like, okay. She signed up for the American dream and was willing to do anything to protect that. I know that. And when you're in this fight every day, fighting for your child's peace and everybody's children's peace, you run out of weapons, or it feels like you do. Turns out reading People for Filth every day is not as helpful as I'd like. So someone's like, well, maybe through this role, you can be a mirror to folks, and you can show them how ugly they have been, and that perhaps they have been a villain in their own child's life. When Zaya herself, wise 15-year-old, said to play the reality, not the hope, I was like, okay, Stella Adler. But I had to find it, and I knew that if I could reach her, then I was onto something, and I could reclaim my soul and the kind of woman I want to be for the next 50, 60 years. And I'm in the thick, but I've never felt so dark from work. I've been irritated, but not dark, where I'm pretty sure my therapist bought a second home just for the extra sessions. I was in it. I was in it when you called, I was like, so I really want to do comedies. Octavia, what do you have for me? She was like, not a comedy. Because, it was like, but I would never have been able to make it through that without this. And each choice as an actor is leading me closer to my true humanity. And so it was a gift. It was a dark gift that I'm still dealing with.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was
that's an interesting point that you make, because I've done a lot of period characters, and those, well, not anymore. I was about to say that the tropes and I don't know, the societal norms were very different for us, but not so much these days. And it was always hard. That's what I'm saying, not so much these days. But it was always hard to leave a character in the 60s. It was always hard to put her on, and it was always hard to leave her there. So now seeing Inez French and all that it took to play her, because this isn't a character that you were creating. It was a woman who actually existed, and that's even harder, even more difficult, because, you know, the person whose life it affects is your director. What I'm hearing, have you been able to rid yourself of that mindset and those places that you had to go in order to find this woman? Or is it still something that you're still, you know, sloughing off those layers to get back to Gabrielle?
I'm close. And it was also why everyone's like, why did you go to Africa for your birthday? I'm like, I had to go. I needed to be reborn in my rightful place. And there's this place in Ghana, or there is a place in Ghana. Yes.
You're second when we get to the. All right, you'll be second. You're first, and you're going to be second. How much time do we have so I can make sure I get to those questions? Okay, we're good.
It's just outside of Accra, and the point of no return, and the last bath, where they took the enslaved to bathe for the last time, all shackled together. A lot of people didn't even make it through the bath, and a lot of people didn't make it from start to finish. But in that river, all I know is they were praying, I was praying. I was in a trance almost, and I just hear my husband like yelling, and I look up and his arms are outstretched like this, and he's just yelling to the sky. It had been a hot day, like sunny day. Skies open up. Torrential downpour, but it was the sweetest, warmest, most gentle, cleansingest rain. And I'm still in the river, and I just was like, all of it, because I was emotional. Every emotion that you can imagine was happening in this river, because you could feel the ancestors' presence. And I kind of lifted up from this rock that I had been, crouching on, and I just started smiling, and everyone was like, and I said, oh, if they thought I was a problem before, they have no idea. And it felt like my superhero origin story. And so that I asked the ancestors to take from me what is no longer mine and useful, and to guide me through love and wisdom. And that's what I'm rocking on now. And I've felt better than I have in over a year since we wrapped. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, for those of you, I can't wait to buy a theater for the inspection, because I think it's important for people to see, for all of the reasons. And the weird thing for me, given where we are in our society today, I never thought that I would actually understand the mom's point of view. And it was a hard place to sit, to go, wow, is she doing this out of fear? Is she trying? Yeah, I guess I was projecting also, but it took a lot for me. I just sobbed. I mean, I'm literally going to start crying again. So Gabrielle, it's just one of the most.
That's what it is, right? Like, you have to project in order to see yourself. Yeah. You know what I mean? And to really truly be moved by a performance. Yeah. But like, when I'm watching people watch it, and then I'm thinking about the choices, every choice, and even like while we were filming it, and we just kept saying the love has to be in this space. We cannot let the love leave this space. The love had to be there on screen. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because as Elegance would say, no one loved me more than my mother. And no one rejected me faster than my mother. Wow. And more thoroughly than my mother. So understanding that a lot of folks' decisions stem from a place of a deep fear. And as Black parents, you know, from the second our babies are born, we're looking at their ears and their nail beds to see how hard of a journey they're going to have. You know what I mean? So you will do, in your mind, you'll do anything to protect your child and make their journey easier than yours. And for a lot of folks, that means you have to do exactly as I say or exactly as I did. And anything outside of that is wrong or from the devil. And when you're just searching for belonging, searching for guidance, searching for a family, a lot of folks find that in organized religion, and it can be beautiful. But when there is nowhere where it says your children are disposable, there is nowhere where it says succumb to fear and cast your own child out. Love thy neighbor. We're all in this together. But when you're a parent and you're like, it becomes almost like an obsession to make things easier. And you need them to constantly shapeshift for you. But where do we get that from? Right. Where do we get that from? We had to, as Black people, to survive, constantly be depending on every situation. You have to shapeshift constantly. And when you make that deal, when to fully assimilate, and because you're taught that the land of milk and honey awaits you if you do all of these things just so, and you subscribe to all of the respectability politics, all of that stuff, everything's supposed to just happen. But we know that's not the case. And I know that trying to get this much closer to whatever I thought was power, right? To a seat at the table in a house they have an electrified fence around. And you're like, I'm not even getting served at this table. You're like, that's not a quirk. That's in the program. But it's you're willing to do anything. And in this town, I have certainly traded my soul. I made many soul sacrifices trying to get this much further. And I didn't need to. And I didn't need to. And for some, a soul sacrifice can be their own child to get this much closer to being thought of as good, worthy, deserving. And that's where I was like, so it turns out me and Inez had a lot in common, because I was bartering with my values. I was bartering with ethics. I was bartering with my own morality and mortality at different points to get this much closer. And for what? Wow. So a lot of times when you're in absolute opposition to someone, you realize when the dust settles, maybe we're actually a lot closer than we think. And when when I got to that realization, I was able to talk to other parents, because what kills me is that I hear more than anything from parents, I just don't know how to love them. Ooh. That is a common refrain. It's as common as when I came out as a sexual assault survivor, and people would say, before the Me Too movement, people would say, me too, me too, me too. It's that common. And now I can say, you are afraid. You're afraid, but identity is not a death sentence. Identity is their humanity. And to try to strip someone of their identity is inhumane And your love should not be inhumane. It used to be the first question I would ask, how much? That was the overriding factor. I mean, and for I'm sure a lot of us, you may be that not only the head of your individual household, but we in our family, you are your brother or sister's keeper. So to this day, not covered by the prenup, I financially support 3 households, sometimes 4. So every job isn't just feeding my creative soul, but I had those bills. The bank is so weird about wanting their money every month. So some jobs are just purely financial, just because I got a lot of bills, a lot of people to take care of. But now, well, yeah, but now I want to be, I don't know, I want to be moved in some capacity. I want to be challenged. Sanaa, who's another one of our good friends, she used to say, baby, if it doesn't scare you, it's not worth doing. And I was like, well, that's silly. I'm going to stick where it's safe. And I think my career reflects that. Safe choices that paid the bills. And now that I believe that I can actually do anything, I got to make up for lost time. I'm literally like, as long as it does not disrupt my peace or my grace, I'm open to hearing, right? And it's hard because when you leave your children, whether that be, we were working in LA, and I probably saw Kav less me working in LA than when I was in New York, right? Just because you leave before she wakes up, you're back after she goes to sleep, and you're like, is it worth it? And there were many days when we were working, 5-6 months, that I would come home and I'd be, I just missed her. But then I think about the work that I did that day with this woman and all the light bulbs that got turned on, and I know I'm going to be a much better mother to Kav. So some certain sacrifices for me are worth it if it means I can be a better human being and certainly a better mother and a better global citizen. But when it's just a check, it don't hit the same.
It's true.
At all.
And that's a great segue into a question from Eden. She wrote, for me and Gabrielle, and I'm just going to let Gabrielle answer this because this is her day, Eden. I'll look you up after the show. What barriers do you hope to see the next generation of Black actors break down? And what barriers are you most proud to have helped break down? Very good question.
Yes. Unfortunately, it's a tale as old as time. Unfortunately, colorism is a thing. You got to call a thing a thing. It is something that that we are all actively dealing with, combating, trying to dismantle. But it is a challenge. It is absolutely a challenge. People have said, I don't think I have ever said this about myself, but people have said seeing a brown girl on TV and in films let them know that it was possible. And I just like to see a lot of us, all the range, all of us, the diaspora. I would like to unite the diaspora, of all of our shades, hues, sizes, all of the things, all of our religions, all of our faiths, all of our things. We're not prioritizing, a certain look, which, when we were coming up, I used to take, who else is with me on this? I used to take pictures of actresses to my cousin who was my hairstylist, and I'm like, how long do I have to leave the relaxer on to look like this?
Well, those are hair. Let me tell you, those are hair choices.
And my cousin was like, "Baby, you have 2 Black parents. There is not a relaxer that has been invented for this." Because I thought that was the way to be thought of as beautiful, the way to be thought of as desirable, and for a long time, that was a part of, who got to work in Hollywood. Who was the residing beauty, and for me, I never got to rest on, I was like, my braces are off. I'm like, you can't tell me anything. I got my Janet Jackson black cat fringe cut, And they were like, cute. Not it. And you're like, wait. And yeah, and then I hear young actresses with the same story 30 years later. And it's like, okay, as producers, as people who create content, who hire casting directors, who cast folks, I make a conscious decision to make sure that we are all represented. So other little girls can be like, oh, look, oh my God, there's so many. Now we can maybe have like a black, ladybird, where it's just an average girl. I don't know, just an average C student black girl, nothing remarkable about her life, who just throws herself out of her mother's car for no reason.
See, that was what I was trying to do with Ma. We don't get those opportunities. So when you get to play crazy and kill people,
You have to.
That's a barrier. You just want those opportunities where you can just play.
Just be.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabrielle.
Just be.
Just be. Okay. Okay, Chandra Lynn, after you wrap on a production, how do you process this is exactly what I was talking about. How do you process the emotions and thoughts that go along with the transition? Very good question, Chandra.
Yeah, well, we'll start at the last one, which was Truth Be Told, season 3, coming out soon, which we'll be back here talking about that one. It brought me to my knees every day, and by the end, my friends had, unbeknownst to me, organized this, like, there was a prayer circle at one point. I turned to all things. A prayer circle, and then they did this, like, a rebirthing ceremony in Malibu on the beach, had organized it. They had drummers out there. They had African dancers. They had, prayed up, prayful people trying to welcome me back into myself, which this year of these projects have been, they've changed me, but, trying not to over drink, was like used to be, a margarita at Casa Vega after a failed audition at Warner Brothers. That would do it.
Pound
now,
cake.
Yeah, right?
Pound cake.
But then it was like, let me just get a double on the rocks. Because that's the kind of day Mama's having. Don't ask for nothing. No, but there are healthier ways, and hence my therapist buying a second home off of all these Zoom appointments.
I'm going to give you guys a little insight. This season of Truth Be Told deals with some very topical issues. And I'm just going to say missing girls.
It was in the press release. You could say.
I can say it?
You could say it. It was in the press release.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let me read the press release because Apple is secretive. They don't tell you anything. No. It's about human trafficking, and it's our best season yet. And this woman brought so much to the table. And there was a lot of emotional sacrificing that you had to do. And I can't say thank you enough for, again, putting yourself in that position. And because of you, I think, and because of your personal journey, I think a lot of young people will be helped by watching this season of Truth Be Told. And I know that was definitely a hard one for you to.
No, it was tragic. But I think you'll all be entertained by my pain. No.
You will be entertained, but you will also be moved and I think educated on what to look out for, things that we don't realize that's happening right before our very eyes.
Every community.
Yeah.
But wait, we should tell how. So we met on the set of City of Angels.
Yes.
I was the young surgeon, and Octavia was the plucky nurse.
The plucky nurse.
Viola was a nurse.
Viola was the
Viola
head
Davis.
nurse.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Maya Rudolph. Was a nurse.
And Niecy Nash was what do you call it?
Was it Candy? Was she a candy trapper? She was.
No, she was. No, she was a nurse. She was like the head nurse at night or something like that.
Yeah, like a NICU.
Yeah.
NICU, maybe
It's
like
crazy
babies.
that I don't remember this, but I remember all of the people.
Yeah, Bokeem.
Bokeem Woodbine.
Who's also in the inspection.
Yeah.
Blair Underwood.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Wendell Pierce was on for a few episodes. Hill Harper. Yeah, but it was so. This is when we talk about get out of your trailer. All of us just hung out.
Yeah.
Because none of us were the star. Like it was just, and it's these relationships that will sustain you your whole career. Like we met how many years? 20 some odd?
6 years ago.
Yes.
We were the exact same age. It was 6 years ago. Stop playing me, Gabrielle. No, it's been 20 something years, and I have to say, when I got my Oscar nomination, there is nothing more rewarding than having your friends that you've been doing this in the game send you, congratulations. And I'm just going to put it out there, and I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to put it out there in a thought for you, because again, this is, I just love the choices that you've made, and I love how you have navigated your career, even at sometimes when you didn't feel like you were in power. You were always doing what you were supposed to do, and it led you to this point. Because let me just ask you, there are some of us who are Being Mary Jane fans who really wanted another couple of seasons. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, if Being Mary Jane had gone on for another couple of seasons, would you have been available to do this role?
Absolutely. No.
Okay, I was trying to
Yeah,
see?
no, I wish I had an excuse. No, absolutely. I worked like 3 days, like actual working 3 days. The lead, the executive producing was a whole challenge. But no, I had 3 days. But it comes down to choices. And at the time, mentally, I couldn't keep up with, we were shooting, you guys all work here, we were shooting 2 episodes at a time. At first they gave us 9 days. Then we had a lightning strike, so that you lose, that we lost a day and whatever. And they're like, so you can do it in 8. And
oh my God.
So I'm shooting sometimes 8 to 10 pages a day. It's hard to be good at that and feel good about that and feel rested with that and feel like you are giving the audience exactly what they deserve. And it just became untenable. Like I couldn't keep that up. But it taught me how to work fast. And it taught me how to try to find the gems. And we gave a lot of people, a lot of directors that had been, put out to pasture prematurely, a lot of actors that got put out to pasture prematurely, and we gave them shots. And then between the Being Mary Jane, Scandal, Queen Sugar, Ava on Queen Sugar, Longoria, we were able to put together the resource, the director resource. Women of color, specifically Black women of color, marginalized folks who had either never gotten a chance or who, had been working on Sanford and Son, and then they were like, that's enough for you. And we brought so many people back. So it did provide a lot of opportunity. And I would love to have maybe a movie, maybe we could bring back Morris and Mike Ely.
What mentor changed your life, Gabrielle?
So when I was talking about people who were not interested in watching me fail, some of our faves, I call them my OGs. They're literally like maybe a year older than me. Tisha Campbell, Tashina, Regina King, Jennifer Lewis, who I had mentioned, but Tisha, Tashina, Regina, they play no games. They didn't 25 years ago. They still don't. But all of them were like, come here, little girl. And I have stories with each of them where they have literally saved my life in different ways. So Tisha, she bought me, she saw that I was struggling, and she paid for this therapist, who is my therapist still to this day, who is not covered by SAG insurance. So it was very expensive at the time, which is why I wasn't, able to get consistent therapy after I left UCLA. And she paid for 10 sessions so I could go to therapy. I have since paid that forward many times over. Like, I can gift you many things, but I'd love to give you the gift of therapy. Regina King. We were swimming. We were at this Bermuda jazz festival, and we were swimming, and me and her had swum out behind this rock, and I got caught in a riptide. And of the two of us, we thought I was a stronger swimmer, but I couldn't get out of it, and I'm screaming. And to this day, we joke, if it had been a different actress, they would have been like, Gabrielle Union didn't make it today. But Regina swam into it, grabbed me, and pulled me back to safety. And then 2 days later, we proceeded to host Black Girls Rock. And I was like, do y'all even understand? Wow. You know what I mean? Keke Palmer, she's a baby. But Keke, and it's I look to my OGs, but you can find mentors everywhere who will remind you of your worth. Me and Regina Hall had walked into, the Golden Globes thing, and where, you're invited, but are you really invited? You're invited, your call time's super late, the photographers are packing up, they're like, it's over. Anyway, so we walk in, and we've got our gowns on, and there's nowhere to sit, but we were starving, and Keke Palmer stands up in this room, and she had been on the couch, and she was like, if y'all don't get up and move for these queens, and they moved. And we sat down.
She is invited always to the cookout.
Always. But you can be a mentor at any stage, any age, and I have just been incredibly blessed with people who just don't want to watch me suffer.
That's wonderful. And I will say, for me, it was Whoopi Goldberg. My mom passed away when I was 17, and a movie came to my hometown, and starring Whoopi Goldberg and Sissy Spacek. And to make a long story extremely short, she just took me under her wing for that entire time that we filmed. And I was so depressed when they were leaving town. I was ready to come to Hollywood. But she, my mom was big on education. And Whoopi said, Hollywood will be there. You go to college like you promised your mother. Hollywood will be there. And she was filming when I graduated. She was filming in Africa, and her brother worked on the set as her driver. And because of the time difference, he called me to let me know that Whoopi was thinking of me. And I still love her to this day, and really just emulated her career and the choices that she made. And she's right. There are lessons to be learned from everyone around you. You just have to be open to them. Do we still, wait, we still have, we have a lot of time, guys.
Here we go. Let's get into it.
This is Gabrielle's day, and isn't it wonderful that she's being so open and honest about things? Oh, now this is a very good question. By April Nixon, Gabrielle. Being in Hollywood for as long as you have you found it easier or harder today to get your own projects greenlit? And how often do you cast new actors in your projects?
It really depends on the project. Some things come together faster. Some things, it feels fast, but you're like, oh, it's been 5 years. I will say, depending, these days they want proof of concept. They want the cast already attached. So if you have a solid cast that folks with money feel the world should see sooner than others, it can happen faster. So it can happen faster. And then there's things that I've been on for 10 years and they're still in development, and there's not a whole heck of a lot I can do about that.
Exactly.
Until I can finance my own things and distribute them myself.
Jeff Bezos, we need $100 million. He's just giving out $100 million. I'll take $100 million.
Yeah.
And I'll just, fund movies,
Put people to work.
Put people to work.
But you have to hire new talent. Nobody wants to see the same people over and over and over
Exactly.
again. Though we tried.
Yeah.
There was a crew of us. We tried to just do every movie together and just remix it. And we're like, I think they're catching on, guys. I think they're catching on to us. But yeah, no, it can get easier. I read everything myself, books, articles, podcast episodes, anything that can be developed. I'm on it. We did 2 books. My girlfriend Robin Lee wrote this book called The Idea of You. Great romantic film. It's amazing. Older woman, younger man. That I optioned the book, and it sat, and it was dead on the vine, and brought in Kathy Schulman, who Viola partnered with on Woman King, and next thing you know, we're off to the races. And we got Anne Hathaway and Michael Showalter, and it was like in 2 seconds, and they're almost wrapped. Now I'm sending, coffee trucks to set. And then there was one that, because I thought that was very much a story for a white woman in her 40s. But I was like, I too would like to be an older woman, with a younger man relationship that I don't have to come home to, because that's a real life thing. He's not here, right?
It's gonna play on the internet, G.
But I optioned Tia Williams' book, The Perfect Find, and got Numa Perrier on, and then just hired a bunch of my friends, and we shot it last summer and did reshoots. And everyone is like, it's brilliant. When is it coming out? And Netflix was like, So it feels like every week there's a new challenge. And with each challenge, you're like, okay, I know how to handle that. Now I don't have to lose it. Now I don't have to, cry myself to sleep feeling like a failure. This is super standard. It takes forever to do anything. Margot Robbie helps. No, dead ass. You get Margot, Florence, Amy Adams. Can go a little faster. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Definitely a challenge. Gabrielle, what advice would you give the actor out there who they've been doing everything right? They've trained, they've they've done the theater, they've done they've gotten parts here and there, but they just haven't gotten that role that has allowed them to break through and financially take care of themselves in this industry. What advice do you give them to keep their head in the game and their heart in the game?
Ooh.
Because it's difficult.
You have to be, your own biggest cheerleader, and also give yourself grace. There is no such thing as an overnight success, unless you want to get to dancing on TikTok. It's a route. But there is no such thing as overnight. You know what I mean? People have been plugging away. We just discover them, and then we call that overnight. But it's hard.
It is.
And you can doubt yourself, and then you can constantly live in comparison of everyone else's life. But no one's living the life you think they are. Not a one. Not a one. Don't let Instagram and TikTok get you jacked up in the game, because I know I'm like, okay, I know how much money I had at 28 and how much things cost and what how often I was working and this, that, and the other, saving this and that. And I'm like, how are you in Dubai every week?
I know.
Like, what jobs are these? And can I apply?
The game has changed.
The game has changed. But don't let anyone else's journey make you look at yours like it's like you're not on your path. Everyone's time is in their time. I would just say, try to limit your soul sacrifices. And let me be clear, because people are like, Illuminati.
I wasn't thinking that, but I'm glad you're saying
Not actually what I'm talking about. I don't think I'm cool enough for the Illuminati, or I ask too many follow-up questions like, do you have dental and vision? And where is my role in the Marvel universe? That's how you know.
I know.
My application is
I'm
still
ready
pending.
We need to put our tights on there.
Yes.
The Marvel universe. We're ready.
But when I talk about soul sacrifices, I'm talking about when you see something and you don't say something. When you know that you can be the cavalry, for someone, and you're like, but that will expose me. They can't. Somebody's got to live to tell the tale. When you know there's another way, and folks aren't trying to go in a positive, reasonable, respectful direction, but you're afraid to say anything because you're afraid of losing proximity to. You're afraid of losing opportunities. You're afraid of being thought of as the angry one. Those are the soul sacrifices that you will think about forever. There's a young woman that is, does very well for herself, but at the time she had been a background actor on Sister Sister, but I'd known her forever. And we get to this party, and she's now in her bag. But she's still kind of on the come up. And randomly, me and Sanaa had walked into this party, and there is, the people that we dream about knowing us. And they're like, Gab, Sanaa? And we're like, oh, it's happening. Oh, we've finally been invited into the inner circle. And we're standing there, and this girl comes up, and they are killing her. But to her face. I mean, she's standing right there, and they are just shredding her. And she's looking at me, because we know each other. We go back. That's the little homie. And I was like, you understand, right? And I didn't say anything. And the look on her face has haunted me to this day. And every time I've seen her since, I apologize. And there's just certain things you'll never get back. You know what I mean? No matter how many times she's like, girl, I forgive you. I know in the back of her mind, I know what you're capable of. Those things. Because it happens all the time. And you're constantly challenged. You're constantly going to be like, oh, this is a soul sacrifice, isn't it? The things, those decisions, those daily decisions that you make that keep you up at night. When people are like, how's it going in Hollywood? The thing that pops up first. And you're like, not good. But if you keep your heart pure, wins and losses are going to be gauged differently. A great audition will feel like an Academy Award when your heart is in a different place. But if you're moving from a place of scarcity and fear of, everything is just going to feel like doom and gloom at all time. I mean, again, this is like Octavia and I, we got closer because there's a point where like nobody's working.
Right.
And we have this mutual friend that we'll just giggle about, who's not around like that any longer. She's not entirely positive. And that's also a lesson about who you keep around. Not a positive person. Not a positive person. God bless her. God bless her. But we would all just be hanging out, like commiserating. Mm-hmm. And there are people who can lift you up in your misery And there's people that are like looking at your misery like a campfire, warming their hands on it.
Right.
You know, in this town, misery can love company. And you just have to be like, I'm sorry, I did not get your RSVP to this.
It's
And
true.
that makes a huge difference in
That's
how
very true.
how you take rejection.
It's very true. And what I would also say, guys, is the industry is changing. I mean, look at Gabrielle. She still looks 30. Okay? So don't let age be an indicator that it hasn't happened and it's not going to happen. Success didn't happen for me until I was 40. I still am only 36. But I want you to know, chronologically, I was 40. So, you know, just don't set limitations on your dreams. Don't set expiration dates on your dreams. And creators create. You know, if you're not getting the great wisdom.
Speak on it.
I'm gonna give you a little bit of wisdom. You have to grow, and your management and agency, they have to grow. So once you grow out of Mistletoe Girl number 1, was it Mistletoe? Okay.
Number two.
Mistletoe Girl number 2. After you've done Mistletoe Girl number 2 for a number of times, after you've done nurse number 1, nurse number 2, nurse number 3, baby nurse, NICU nurse, you know, I mean, I've been every nurse that you can name in my 20-something odd years. There are some people like who would like to see you in a certain place because you're bringing them some sort of income. Sometimes you have to know that it's time for me to grow, and you have to step out on faith, and you have to have faith in yourself. You have to have blind faith in yourself. You have to continue to do everything you need to do to become successful, and success comes in different stages and different phases. But do not be dismayed, because if it happened for me at 40, and I was an overnight success at 15 years in the game by that, you know what I mean? So I just, the fact that you guys are all here means that you're still doing what you want to do and need to do as actors, and that's seeking your tribe and figuring out, you know, what each one of us has done. There is no one path to success. We all get there by variations.
Like when we talk about soul sacrifices and how you want sets to be, how you want your experience to be on any set, I still firmly believe, no matter what kind of set you're on, that it is our job and responsibility as decent human beings to make sure that everyone is seen and taken care of and respected in the same kind of way. That's just period. That's just period across the board. But yeah, and I wish I got paid a lot on Bad Boys too. You know, when you work with Will and Martin, you know.
They get the dollars and you get the dimes.
Yeah. I think I got paid more on Delivers from Eva. But I think I'm also one of the few people who thinks Michael Bay's a pussycat. So. But I come from sports. Like I come from the Bobby Knight School of Communication. So, yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause for Gabrielle Union Wade.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out on a holiday weekend and giving this young woman her flowers. Thank you so much.